For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. Brazilian presidential candidates on the campaign trail are feeling the heat with just 4 days to go until general elections in Latin America's largest country. A poll released yesterday shows incumbent Dilma Rousseff will win by a comfortable margin this Sunday. If she doesn't garner the 50% of the vote needed to prevent a second round, the poll shows she will beat Marina Silva by 8 points in a runoff election. Key issues in this election cycle have been the economy, legalizing marijuana, and abortion. And for the latest on this dramatic campaign, we turn to our correspondent in Brazil, Stephanie Kennedy. Hey, Stephanie.
Good day. Well, this is our third day here in Rio, and things are really heating up for the elections. Yesterday, it was announced that Brazil can expect its highest voter turnout ever. So much so that the Brazilian Superior Electoral Court has tripled the number of assistants that will be working this Sunday in the polling stations. Just to get an idea, in the previous elections, 400,000 assistants were deployed, whereas this year it will be 3.5 million assistants. Later on today, we'll be visiting the Santa Marta favela to see how the popular sectors of society are participating in the electoral process. That's all for now. We'll catch up with you later. I'm Stephanie Kennedy from Rio.
And thanks to Stephanie. And Brazil is not the only Latin American country headed to the polls soon. Bolivians will soon also head to the polls. Incumbent Evo Morales is headed for a landslide victory, according to surveys. With just 11 days to go, surveys show Morales is pulling 59% of the country's votes. His closest competitor, Samuel Doria Medina, is lagging 40 points behind. And we go to Mexico, where at least 14 of the 57 students missing in the state of Guerrero have been found alive. The story surrounding the events is still somewhat mysterious. What is known is that at least 2 students died after police shot at buses Friday night. As the students were talking to the press later, a group of them were abducted by an unidentified armed group. The state governor has suggested that corrupt police may be to blame. Vulture funds are still dominating Argentina's headlines today. The country plans to pay U.S. bondholders from within Argentina, something a U.S. judge has recently ruled illegal. Despite that, Argentina President Cristina Fernandez announced yesterday that she executed a payment of $161 million in interest.
También hoy, 30 de septiembre.
Today, September 30th, the Republic of Argentina, exercising the sovereign powers constitutionally held by its executive, ones recognized by the United Nations, the Organization of American States, and every country in the world, has made the necessary deposits in order to pay its debt.
Y la Carta de la Organización de Estados Americanos y todos los países del mundo ha depositado.
As the topic of debt payments dominates the Argentine Congress, protesters gathered outside the legislature Monday highlighting a different subject, the legalization of abortion. Representatives from 300 social organizations gathered carrying banners that read, quote, "Make abortion legal, keep the church out of it," end quote. Within South America, only in Guyana, French Guiana, and Uruguay allow women unrestricted access to abortion. And in neighboring Chile, President Michelle Bachelet reveals that public spending is at its highest since 2009. She attributed it to an injection of national money and strong government policy. Bachelet says the spending will give the economy a boost and create nearly 140,000 jobs. The money will primarily be spent on education, health, and social security. In Cuba, Colombian peace talks continue between the government and FARC guerrillas. Our Colombia correspondent, Charles Parkinson, has an update.
Today, 1st of October, the third of 5 victims delegations arrived in Havana to take part in peace negotiations between the Colombian government and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Now, within that group of 12 appear 5 victims of the FARC, 5 victims of paramilitary groups, 1 victim of the Colombian military, and 1 victim of both the military and paramilitary groups, pointing to the historic relationship that has existed between the two. Now, the heavy representation of women continued with this group, as has been seen with previous groups, with 8 of the 12 victims being women. One of those women is Aida Abella, the leader of the political party, the Patriotic Union. Now, the Patriotic Union was subject to what many have described as a political genocide during the 1980s and 1990s, when more than 3,200 members were murdered by paramilitary groups and over 500 were disappeared. Now, this is particularly relevant given that in the last few weeks we've seen over 120 human rights defenders, politicians and supporters of the peace receive death threats from paramilitary groups. Charles Parkinson in Bogota, Colombia.
And thanks to Charles. And moving away from Latin America, in Ukraine today, an explosion rocked a school just as children began to resume classes. The attack happened in the largest rebel-controlled city, Donetsk, and comes as a major blow to the ceasefire agreement in effect since September 5th. Russia and the West denounced the attack. Kiev blamed the blast on separatist factions. U.S.-led forces have launched airstrikes on Islamic State fighters. The latest strikes are targeting fighters in the Kurdish town of Kobani near the Syrian border with Turkey. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says that his country will fight against Islamic State militants in the region. He also says Turkey hopes to see the withdrawal of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Civil rights activist and former death row inmate Mumia Abu-Jamal will deliver the graduation speech at Goddard College in Vermont on October 5th. Abu-Jamal was convicted of killing a Philadelphia police officer in 1981. Supporters of the former Black Panther say that he is innocent and was denied a fair trial. Abu-Jamal's recorded voice was played at the commencement of Evergreen State College in Washington in 1999. And finally, we go to Panama, home to Latin America's first building by star Canadian architect Frank Gehry, which was inaugurated yesterday. Known for his shimmering, mold-breaking buildings, including the Guggenheim in Bilbao and the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, Gehry's design is for Panama City's Museum of Biodiversity and is one of the most colorful to date. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.